if you want to do something unique, and if you want to do something great and transcend the expectations that people have for you and of you, and even transcend maybe your own expectations, which are too low and too boring and too uninspiring. If you follow me, you're probably someone who is a fitness enthusiast. You're working out, you're going to the gym, you're staying on top of your health, you're staying strong, you have energy and vitality. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing that you're doing that and you're staying on top of all those things. But I have a question. Is your life a bit boring, a bit mundane outside of the gym? A lot of people feel that way. Even a lot of people who are very, very accomplished, they're working out and everything, but for some reason, there's a sense that their life is not exciting. It's not unique. It's just meeting expectations. And maybe the expectations are low. Maybe the expectations are a bit boring, but they aren't doing anything to transcend expectations. So if that sounds anything like you, I want you to stick around and hear this, because I'm going to share with you one idea that will help you start transcending expectations in your life so that you live a unique, fulfilling, flourishing life. So this is Mark Johnson, the founder of Bounce Pep, bringing you ideas for a fit and flourishing future, and the youngest son of Bill Johnson to boot. And to all my subscribers, thank you for subscribing. If you are not subscribed, I hope you do. With that said, let us jump right in. This is going to be largely about your expectations. Again, maybe your expectations are low. Maybe your expectations are just a bit boring. And not only your expectations, maybe the expectations that people have for you and of you are the same. Maybe they're just people just expect the norm out of you, okay? And you just go along with it. Well, if you're tired of just going along with the norm and just being what everybody expects and doing what's expected and just never really doing anything special, never feeling like you're doing something special or unique in your life, even if you're like making a lot of money or something like that, you still don't have this sense that you're doing something unique with your life. You're talking to the right person, because if nothing else, one thing that I know about is doing something unique with my life. I know a lot about that. And we're going to start as usual with a little example from the world of fitness and health. Have you ever seen someone or known someone who, for as long as you can remember, was out of shape, unfit, just, in terrible condition, but then one day, for some reason, whatever the motivation was, we'll set that aside. But for some reason, that person decided that they were going to get in shape. And the first thing that they did was they went to a gym. And then over the months, they just worked out and worked out and worked out. And slowly but surely, that person that you knew, that person that you had, frankly, low expectations for, you just thought they were always going to be this out of shape, kind of uncomely looking person. Slowly but surely, they begin to transform their body and their spirit and their mind, and they really transform themselves into something that, quite frankly, you could not have seen, previous to them doing it. You just didn't have the expectation of that kind of a thing occurring for them, right? So I want you to understand something. The thing that they did, which was vital, was they changed their environment. They got into the gym, okay? Whereas they were not going to the gym at all before, they got into a completely different environment, which is the gym. And once they got there and they got around other people who were working out, that put them into a different frame of mind. They could see possibilities that maybe weren't obvious to them previously. And then they started working out. They started building that motivation and that momentum. And over time, they transformed their body. But it started with a simple change of the environment that they were in. Okay. So this is the very first thing that you can do if you want to live a more unique, a more exciting, just a life that's just not so doggone normal, is change your environment. Sometimes you have to get out of the environments that you're always in and get into a completely different environment. And that will be the catalyst that you need. let me tell you something about me. I grew up in Detroit, and everyone knows that Detroit is a huge car town, right? Huge car town. And when I was growing up, a lot of the expectation was that, people would graduate and maybe they would go to college or something, but working at the auto companies was like the thing. That was the normal thing in Detroit, or being connected to the auto industry in some way. That was just the norm growing up in Detroit. But I didn't want to live a normal life. I wanted to transcend expectations. I wanted to live a unique life. I didn't want the same boring stuff that everybody else was getting. So I decided that one way or another, I was going to make my life in Japan. I changed my environment completely, completely. There is no similarity between Detroit and Japan. Let me just tell you, zero. And that is what got me on the path to living the unique life that I have lived. Okay, that one changing the environment, which, on the surface, it sounds, simple enough, right? But a lot of people have a lot of difficulty changing their environment. So I want to encourage you, if you want to do something unique, and if you want to do something great and transcend the expectations that people have for you and of you, and even transcend maybe your own expectations, which are too low and too boring and too uninspiring, you can change your environment, and that will get the ball rolling for you. Okay, get that ball rolling. Let me tell you a funny story. When I built my house in Japan, the house that I live in right now, I built it's really the biggest house in the neighborhood. And when you're building a house, sometimes you come by and you check on the state of construction. You just stick around for a few minutes, and then you leave. And so the people that are already in the neighborhood, they don't really know who's building the house. They're probably not going to really see you. So to make a long story short, when I finally moved in, one of the things that's customary in Japan is that you take gifts to all the neighbors. Whoever moves into a new house will take some simple gifts. It could be some candies or some little hand towels or just something really simple like that. And you pass them around to all the neighbors and you introduce yourself. You just go door to door. And so, I did that. I went through the whole neighborhood and everything was fine. And the last house that I went to was my next door neighbor. Okay. And I'll never forget this. He opens up the door and, I go into my whole speech. It's great to be moving to the neighborhood, and, nice to meet you. My name is, Mark Johnson. And, I have 3 daughters, and, like the whole speech. Right. And so he's taking it all in, and he's looking at me, but he's looking at me. And the first thing he says, I kid you not, this is a true story. "You're a black guy." And the funny thing was, it wasn't in a weird Ku Klux Klan type of way. It was not that kind of vibe at all. He was just genuinely he had this sense of wonderment that this person that had built this big house next to him was a black man. It was so far outside of his expectations, what he considered the norm. And so you see, I was transcending another person's expectations. It was so far outside of his norms that he just forgot all common sense and all sense of niceties. There was no "welcome to the neighborhood" and "oh, how nice to meet you too," and "my name is this and that." The only thing that he could think, just looking me up and down, was "you're a black guy," right? And again, he didn't say, it wasn't disrespectful. It wasn't weird. It wasn't like that. It wasn't in a negative way. He was just kind of dumbfounded, that this could be happening. It was totally outside of his expectations. Okay. So what I want you to understand is changing your environment, can put you in a place where you start to see things that you couldn't see before. And you start to take opportunities that you didn't have before. They start to become visible. You start to do things. You start to do unique things, special things that make your life interesting instead of boring. And it starts with changing your environment. So I want you to take this tip. Think about, what you can do to change your environment. If you just, I don't care how much money you got. A lot of people have a lot of money, and that's all great. It doesn't mean that just because you're wealthy or something, that you're really living flourishing and an exciting life, a life that really feels like you're doing something unique. And the problem could be that you just need to change your environment. Okay. One of the things that I do, I have a program where it's basically a VIP retreat where I invite people to come and join me in Kyoto, and I help them level up themselves in terms of their sense of purpose and their focus and how they follow through on the things that they want to accomplish. But the whole idea of it, the whole kind of foundation of the program is inviting these VIP people to Kyoto, Japan, taking them out of the environment that they're in, that they're accustomed to, and bringing them into a completely different environment so that they can start to perceive different things and start to imagine different possibilities for themselves, open up their minds in ways that it hasn't been opened before, right? That's the power of changing one's environment. So I want you to remember this message and think about how you can make your life more exciting, more unique by changing your environment. That is one of the first steps you can take. With that said, this has been Mark Johnson, and I'm always bringing you ideas for a fit and flourishing future. But right now, I'm going to sign off, and we'll talk to you next week.